But do you feel you started out in a very, I don't think females were very as much popular in that field. But so did you feel you were not part of the pack, or did you feel the feelings of being a lone wolf or something? Because what you're doing is really empowering for women of today's world. But how did you feel when you were the only one starting out in such a male driven field?
So, yes, when I started, it was not very female oriented. Even my dad, when I told him I want to learn how to scuba dive because of his previous experience in the 50s and being a military man, he was just like, oh no, scuba diving is not for women. And I was, let's say, determined, if not stubborn enough, to actually go and look for my own sources. And as soon as I found it, obviously he changed his mind and realized that it was a different part. But many times, and I started, so 27 years ago, I was 22 when I started this career. Sometimes I was the only woman on the boat. And I had received through the years condescending attitudes. I've received what, as women, kind of like jokingly call it as mensplaining. You know, the mensplain something. Oh, you're a girl. Let me explain you this. There's like, no, I know. I received differences in treatment and attitude. Some are in a way chivalrous, right? You see me carrying tanks, but when I go to grab your bag, because that's my job, you're like, oh, no, it's a heavy bag. And it's just like, I just carry down 80 pounds of gear, but that's okay. So some of it are cute and forgivable. Some are very demeaning. The thing is, I never really focus on that. I just went about my way. And yes, sometimes it was disruptive, but I try not to keep that as, let's say, a chip on my shoulder. I just kept going. And sometimes, in a certain way, just told people, you know, out of the way, if that's what you think, not my issue, it is your issue. What I didn't realize is, yes, I have become, and don't get me wrong, there's been trailblazers out there way, way, way before me, women that are in their 90s now, or women that are already passed, who actually were really the true pioneers of women in that industry. But I did not realize how much I paved for a lot of women. I realize that now when I hear back from women. And women are still in a different position than men. And what I try not to do is to actually use that as a leverage. What I try to do is just inspire women to say, we are not different in a way, but we are different in a way. And so I think we need to accept the differences and work on what our strengths rather than keep leveraging on our weaknesses. And then that completes, I think, a team. I'll give you an example. I am 1 meter 67 height, right? And I have very strong body, but like when I handle oxygen bottles, there are certain oxygen bottles, they're like my height, and they have like a big cover, like a big metal cover. And some of them, they're a little bit rusty. And I can try with all my mighty to open it with my two hands. But sometimes I call one of my kids, he's one of my Bahamian kids, but he's like, you know, 1.80 meters, and he's about this big, and his hand is like my two hands. So he comes, and with one hand he opens an oxygen bottle. Does that make me weak? It's like, no, it's just beyond my capabilities. Now, mind you, I can put a screwdriver in it and hammer it right open, right? But he comes and with one hand opens it. And so I think what we need to start understanding is, yes, there are certain things maybe I can't do from that point of view. But that does me not make you incapable of blending oxygen, nor diving the mix, nor being able to swim 5-6 hours inside a cave. And I think that is where it needs to be more addressed, right? It's been proven, for example, that women make better airplane fighters and airplane flyers than men just because of their mindset. But it's also been proven, for example, it may be like on a land kind of work, on a field work, maybe they have some difficulties. Now, what we shouldn't do is judge on that. but instead create teams that leverage on the strength of the men and the strength of the women to compensate for the weaknesses of both.